pretty good so far. So
So if everybody can come off of mute and giving a testing, 1, 2, 3.
Alani, just give it a few seconds. I don't see anyone coming in yet, but it just went live. So
Okay, we'll just wait a little bit. Sorry, I was dealing with issues on another presentation, so.
yeah, here we go. Here's some people coming in now.
Okay.
Alrighty, looks like some more people are coming in, so we can go ahead.
Okay. Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the second session in our first day of the Office of Indian Education's Project Directors meeting. We have a wonderful presentation here to live and learn a relationship, Michigan State Tribal Consultation process. If you maybe participated in the Arizona consultation process, our original idea was to have both of these states share, but they had so much great information that we decided to give them their own separate sessions. And so I know that you're going to enjoy this. Let's go ahead and get disclaimed, go through our disclaimer. Is it not playing, Nate?
No, it's not playing, of course.
Okay, I'll read it.
Okay.
So here's our disclaimer. This presentation was produced under the U.S. Department of Education, contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises Incorporated. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. All right, take it away.
All right, I want to thank everyone for joining with us today as we kind of share with you what's been happening in Michigan. It's really a lot of what's going on in Michigan is really about the process, and we have a lot of work to be done yet, but we're really excited about some of the progress that's been made so far. So before we get too much into it, I want to take a moment to have different presenters introduce themselves. So we'll start off with George Peterson.
Superintendent, Watersmeet Township School District. We're very excited, very proud to be selected to present what we have for you. Our committee, our teachers, our staff, we've been working very hard, and I think we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. There's always room for improvement. Thank you. McGwitch.
We'll go to Ricky.
Aha bojo, niga nanakut ndigo, bijio dot them, not kamigwaning nishnaben and my English name is Ricky White, and just as our leader just shared, just so proud and really honored to be able to share the things that are happening here at Watersmeet and Lac-View Desert Tribe. So honored to be here. Looking forward to sharing.
You then Lisa.
Ani buju nimki gokoi nidishnika mangdodem kaite kitaganing nadunjaba. My English name is Lisa McGeejic, and I am the Lac-View Desert Deputy Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. I'm also the Vice President of the Watersmeet School Board, and I'm very honored to be here. English.
And Melissa?
Buju Mino Gijigad, good day, Wabzi Kwe Dijnakas, Name Dodem, Saginaw Chippewa Keenan Donjaba, Gijwa Soden no Nungshe. My English name is Melissa Isaac. I am a citizen of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. I am Sturgeon Clan, and I work for the Michigan Department of Education's Indigenous Education Initiative as the Gijwasud, or Protector of the Young. And I'm happy to be here with all of you today. Miigwech.
Thank you. And my name is Nate Beelen. I also work with Michigan Department of Education Indigenous Education Initiative. My role on the team is formally on paper as Program Coordination Specialist. I also serve within my ancestral language as a Bruggenbauer bridge builder. So a big part of my task has been to kind of focus on developing some of those relationships between the tribes and the school districts that service their students. And so that's what we'd like to kind of share a little bit more with you about today, about that process and what's going on in Michigan. So I'll turn it back over to Melissa just to kind of talk about how we center ourselves.
Yes, miigwech, Nate. One of the things that we pride ourselves on and the way that we think that this work should be done in any nation, in any capacity, when we're talking about the education of our people, is that every thought and every decision should be centered on the sacred. We believe that Indigenous learners are the driving force, essential to improving educational systems. Without them, there is no educational system. And that we accept the responsibility of keeping Indigenous learners as the focus of our work, and that we accept our role in creating and facilitating safe spaces for these sacred beings. And as you can see from the slide there, we're talking adult learners, we're talking our binojis, our babies, and everything in between. And so that's how we center our work.
Thank you. And then really centering off on the students, on the learners is a big part of it, and keeping those sacred, but then focusing on some of those relationships. And so we wanted to share with you a story from a district in our state where they've really focused on this relationship building over the past years, and give them an opportunity to share that story between a school district and their local tribe that's in the area. So I'll turn that over to the team from Watersmeet and Lac-Vieux Desert.
Hey, wonderful. I'll just kind of lead in with this slide. Again, this process has been one of an invitational spirit. We could not do anything if we're just simply going to force feed things down the throats of our staff, the students, right? You know, and right there across the shared parking lot of the tribal nation. And so we've really uncovered a spirit of invitation, and an invitation to join at the table, to build a strong relationship by indigenizing, right, the things that we are doing in the program. And this first slide is really just simply, it's representative of our process. As you're well aware, Native Americans, we're really big on imagery, right? And this actually captures our Indigenous learning style. This is a medicine wheel, and we start on that east side, that color of yellow, and our people needing to see it, right? You know, so if we think of this journey of building relationships, everyone visualizing seeing each other, right? Acting in a relational way of treating each other well, right? Treating each other with good intentions, treating each other in a way that we all want to be treated. And that foundational piece is of creating belonging and respect. And so seeing it is that initiation of that learning, and then feeling it. You're going to hear some stories here from both our tribal community, along with our school, you know, staff and representation and administration. So in that, you're going to get a sense of this feeling of what we have gone through as a team and as a unit in this shared spirit of invitation. That invitation is such a powerful way when we think of building those relationships with tribal relations. the invitation, right, needs to be there. And so we've created that spirit. So that's our genuine feeling. Everyone feels like they have a voice and a place at the table. And then we need to do some things with that content, right? You know, so as we think of this learning process, seeing it, feeling it, and then doing something with it. So we've put into place an action of what this all looks like. And then we say, only then do we know it, right? You know, and so it's really this birth of this almost way of life and this way of thinking about things that has been happening right there at Waters Meet in relation with Lac Vieux Desert, right? The tribal nation. So I'll kind of pass each of our slides. We're just gonna, you know, if there's anything more, definitely want to invite George and Lisa to branch in as we look at our process here.
Miigwech, Ricky. I think what I would add to this is that when I first returned back here to Getaganing, to this community, I took a walk through the school here, and there was no imagery on the walls of any Anishinaabe representation, and now there is. So we have language, words in different various spots within the school. And I think that even posters, imagery, it helps the students feel validated and recognized, and they have a visual representation. So just looking at this medicine wheel, I think that's all inclusive with that, because now the kids see themselves here in the school. I don't know, George, do you have anything to add to that?
You pretty much summed it up. Throughout the year, we've grown a lot here this last school year, and we're looking forward at continuing and even getting better for next school year. So that's one of our goals will be to just keep moving forward and doing whatever we can to make everyone feel welcome in the Waters Meet Township School District.
Next slide, please. So when we cultivate this Getaganing, that tribal nation, you almost translated it is really cultivating of a garden, right? You know, so the tribal nation itself is worded and phrased in a way of building relationships and how we're going to grow things. And so we've really cultivated that spirit of invitation where tobacco is offered to people to come and help and share, right? You know, from tribal leaders to community members to knowledge keepers, you know, that invitation through the spirit of that tobacco placed in someone's hand, and then that ask of, hey, can you come and help us? And then they know that we're coming in a good way and we're going to do the best we can with what we know and what we can share. And again, the community is just such an active and engaged participant in this. You know, when that invitation has been made there, folks want to come to the table, right? You know, we all want what's best for our kids. We all want to, you know, have our kids have a better way of life than what we had growing up. And so the community has really launched into, you know, that united front via that conduit of the invitation. And then we have this moniker, and this again, this is the moniker really that I've carried in consulting that I've done with many various places. And that's what is good for Native Americans is really good for all. So all of these concepts, right? That frame of learning style, and then, you know, bringing our folks on this journey to become culturally responsive educators. There's things that needed to happen on the way there. And, you know, learning to crawl before we can walk, right? Learning to walk before we can run. And we're still in that crawling phase, but we absolutely know it and we celebrate that, right? You know, and then again, looking at that local Anishinaabe ways of life. Now, when you walk into Waters Meet, the first thing you're going to see in the, you know, in the commons area is a wigwam that was built by, again, a local knowledge keeper with all the kids. Right there, a replica, right? You know, but right when the kids walk in, they see and feel this. And then when you look at it again, the training for staff and students, bringing all of them along on the board here. And really what ends up happening with this invitation is you have champions like Lisa McGeejic and others within the tribe streamlined right into the school, right? You know, so it's not like I wonder if I'm welcome here. I wonder how I can help. The invitation has been sent and it's really put into a plan. And then the action of doing it really just transcends into they're all of a sudden presenting in class, right? To help, again, support our educators who aren't the experts on any of this. None of us are, but we all have this, not necessarily complacency, but knowing that we're going to help each other out with this. So it's really just, again, cultivating that spirit of that invitation to create that belonging. And this is on a student level, on a staff level, on a organizational level, when you think of school board, parent committee, and then just sharing with you what the geography looks like. The school here sharing the parking lot with the tribal nations, administrative offices. So they're right there. So they've really synergized in so many ways. So again, I'll invite Lisa and George to chime in on what the spirit of how we've done this relational piece feels like on, again, from somebody like Lisa, who's a community member, right? A tribal, keeper, liaison, so many different hats she wears, and how she can share that. And then maybe George again on the impacts of what this has had on your staff. So Lisa.
It looks like George wants to say something now. Let's.
On the lines of what Ricky was just telling you, here's one of the books that the 3rd grade class made. And as we page through it, here's Orange Shirt Day. I don't know if you can see that very well. And it goes through, the whole book has different topics that we went through and we covered throughout the school year. Okay, that's a 3rd grade book. This book was made by the 2nd graders. And if you go through, words speak more than actions. This is going to be our proof that we're reaching these children way down in the 2nd grade, kindergarten, 3rd grade, and they're talking about boarding houses and the effects it has on the tribe throughout the years. So I'm just so proud of what we're doing here in Waters Meet. And like Ricky says, we sent out the invitation and it's out there for everyone. And we just want to keep moving forward with that.
I think I would also just say that spirit of invitation is crucial. It really is, to know that exists. That's really important.
Next slide, please. So this, again, these next few slides are just some of the things that have been ongoing and done. So this is just part of the menu, right? Yeah, we would love to have deer meat on the menu, right? We'd love to have, fresh walleye and so forth on the menu. It'll get there at some point. But when you look at what the kids' activities, again, what is good for, Native Americans is good for all. Waters Meet, 80% of the students are absolutely, Native American and Anishinaabe primarily. The other 20% are not. And they also feel the sense of pride in knowing the original peoples of that land area there. So they're getting an incredulous education. And I think what you see here in these next few slides are just some of those things that we celebrate and how we want to indigenize, again, through our students seeing themselves in the building. So you think about that relational piece with the tribe, that is exactly what our people want and need. If we're going to feel like we belong in a place, feel like we connect with the place, and feel like we're actually wanted there, that we're going to see ourselves in the program. And all data, all research that you'll find that shows in terms of Native Americans and our success in turning things around, when we feel like we belong in the place and when our identity is recognized, everything goes off the charts. And that's what we've noticed at Waters Meet. And George will chime in with this stuff. Attendance rates goes up, behavior referrals go down, more parental involvement, like everything just absolutely just sparks from there. And we're, again, this is 1 year of many that we're going on this journey. So these next few slides, I think there's 2 or 3 of them, you'll kind of see And maybe, I don't know, Lisa, George, if you want to, yeah, so you can see just some of the things that these students like, look at this. This is part of our, right, Ishkigamezigagizis, which means maple syrup harvesting moon, a contribution by our Anishinaabe people to the entire world of this gift of maple syrup. Well, it just doesn't come like that out of the tree. So you can see this student here really embarking on a journey, and probably has never in his life had a chance, to share, this image of what's so critical and important to our people. This simple drawing here says a lot about our culture, our ways of life, and so forth. So giving them the opportunity, not just by a challenge, but through an invitation. So this invitation really is something in action where students have opportunities to smudge, right, inside the school. But of course, students coming off the bus and coming into the school, you'll have the student council president and school board, president sitting there greeting them with smudge. So the culture is really just something that's embedded, streamlined throughout the entire program and on every organizational platform, whether it's curriculum writing, leadership team, school board, again, parent committee. These things are streamlined in action and in communication there. So go ahead, Lisa. This is such a great photo, huh? What a photo.
Coordination. This was with the Watersmead School and our Sugar Bush restaurant here. And so you can see the detail. I'm just really proud because see, Malachi, he actually worked for our Tribal Historic Preservation Office, and he was given teachings about how to collect, and he created the birch bark container for it too. You can see the detail in that in the imagery here. So we had the whole school was able to create artwork for the menu at our restaurant. And so it was really difficult to pick the winners. Let me just say, really, really difficult. The artwork is amazing. They all tell stories without the words. So that's what you'll see in the next few slides. You can probably move to the next one. Some more winners here. We have Armani Anton, Blake Shively. You see Ziguan, we went with springtime, right? That we're doing teaching seasonally and trying to coordinate that within the school curriculum here. And we're getting great responses. You can see the winners, the drawings. You can probably go to the next slide. And then here you have actual pictures of the winners holding their winnings. The Tribal Historic Preservation Office provided prizes for the winners. And these are only a few of them. There's many winners of the art contest. It was a beautiful coordination, beautiful event. You could probably go to the next slide. And then we're at Ricky White, First Nations consultant.
Yeah, and I'm really humbled to be able to just kind of share some of the things that we've done. I've been a conduit of not just a cheerleader, but I know what my role is with the school district as a consultant, and it's a motivator, an inspirer, and really to bring best practices to the school. And so if you think of the staff, you need those staff to also be able to act in this way. And when you look at the staff, 98% or so, right, the vast majority non-native, mostly white. And so what I typically have seen throughout districts, and again, right there at Watersmead, is with this staff looking this way, right, that they need some support with this. The common thing that I receive in feedback from staff, especially non-natives, is that they're afraid to integrate native content and curriculum because they don't want to desecrate. They're afraid to desecrate, afraid to offend. And of course, they didn't learn any of this stuff in their K-12 either. And they got even less when they went on to college and got all their certifications to become a great teacher. And these are such good humans that we all have right there as far as educators. So the journey that we brought them on was to have them connect with the Ojibwe culture. So providing them with teachings, both locally and fundamentally about our people. And a lot of them are generalized as well. We have and share as Native peoples right here in the United States, Canada, you name it. We have a lot of shared teachings and ideals, there's no question. But what we've done is when we have them go on that journey, they know a little more and they connect with it a little more, and it gets them more comfortable. And so part of the support is embedding that Ojibwe language and culture throughout the entire school. So really Ojibwe-tizing, if we want to call it that, right? The program. And it is so much fun, right? We make sure we let the teachers know that we're learning right there with you. We are not perfect. We don't know everything. So being vulnerable is a good thing. It is not a disadvantage. So we've really immersed them with Ojibwe language and culture from day one, right? Day one, they learned how to introduce themselves, and that's a work in progress. They're going to fumble it. And yes, there might be some feedback coming back, and we got to deal with that too. But a really critical part to this whole thing was also to understand the story on why. If we're going to build relationships with the people, and that's really what this is all about, when we're consulting with a tribe, we also have to understand that there has been some things that have happened. And if we think of that trauma and the intergenerational trauma, you saw George share from a third grader who learned and heard about, right, a lot of the devastation of the boarding school era. We can't hide from that anymore. We need folks to know that things happened and it really attacked our right identity, our language, our culture, and our very formation of who we are. And we've kind of are left as I often say, we're the orphans and descendants of what has been left. And there's so many of us that are still just desperately wanting to know more of who we are. And so there's a massive piece of information there, and every educator in that school absolutely got it. And if you think of that medicine wheel at the start, they saw some things that were shared with them. They definitely felt it because, you know, we shared some personal experiences from right there in Lac-Vieux Desert, and of course my own. And then we did something with it. We did it by applying what we know now, right? And it just creates an overall sense of empathy, compassion, and that relationship building is an absolute critical part of all of this. And so when we look at all of this, another piece that the school and the community went all in with is they said, you know what, if we're really going to do this, and we're going to do this in terms of our calendar, then we need our professional development to be harnessed and focused on it. So every professional development day was, with Ricky, and a lot of times what I call these things these are just more, we had some monikers like, teachings from Ricky or wisdom from White, you name it. I'd come on the announcements at school, right? Like even sitting right here in Fargo, North Dakota, all the way across in Waters Mead, COVID taught us all how to Zoom and taught us how to still interact virtually. So there I am, hey, Waters Mead, and oh my gosh, the sounds of those things reverberating through the school. It's a familiar voice, one that we've been very consistent with. And every time that I've been on site, I've had student assemblies, and we basically form in that, again, teaching of our circles. And we've created circles as part of our process of sharing in a respectful way. Students offering tobacco as a way of inviting knowledge, as a way of getting themselves in, again, a vulnerable way to say, you know what, I'm going to learn some things today. And then again, when you look at all the organizational meetings, right, again, we're not perfect. We are in that crawling and walking stage, but I'm so super proud of the buy-in, right? You think of the buy-in, we need a product that people are going to believe in. And if we're going to create belief in this, it has to be rooted in what the vast majority of the people in that school are going to likely gravitate to, right? And then it will bring the others in. And so non-native students sitting at their graduation, and half of them being white or non-native, my gosh, shaking my hand, knowing and thanking and saying, this is exactly what has been needed at Waters Meet. I'm so proud and anxious for, think of those kindergartners coming in, now having this type of immersed way what kind of graduates are they going to be in 13 years? Oh my goodness, exactly what we would want to see. So that's really what this, what my engagement and relationship has been. It's not necessarily that it wouldn't have happened without it, but I've been that kind of role to be a cheerleader, like I said, an inspirer, and then bringing that package of best practices blueprint that I've been able to bring and share with the school. But it's really, once it's been ignited, unbelievable what Lisa McGeesick and the school board, the parent committee, of course, George and his leadership just constantly saying, keep the legacy moving, and absolutely just sharing blasts of text messages, emails, celebrating, saying, yes, we're not perfect, but we sure are going to keep learning and doing. We are not going to stop doing, right? You know, so I'll, yeah, any questions or comments, you can throw them in there, but I think that's kind of where we are with that. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, and I think we've really kind of, you know, harnessed this. You can see Lisa and a staff member. We, you know, every one of our trainings, I also infuse cultural content with them. So for 3 hours, they're not just sitting there listening to me storytell. There is a lot of that, but they also have something that they do in the midst of it. So think of that journey of, right, becoming culturally responsive teachers. We can't just put them under contract and say, you work here, so you will infuse Native content right now today. Oh my gosh, get me out of here, right? I'm deathly afraid. Well, instead, what we've done is we've created a cultural connection with these teachers so that they can reflect on all those good teachings for their own. And if you think of this journey, once they've had that journey, cultural connections, it leads to cultural competence, which gives a lot of these non-native teachers the confidence to then become culturally responsive to where they're going to start doing it. So the way this worked at Waters Meet is, think of that first half of the year, right up until January, where we had all of this stuff just kind of not piling in, because we were very cognizant of the staff to not just bombard them with this. We have to do it strategically and tactfully. But think of, as they got very comfortable, the ask that we had for them to finish out the year was, let's start celebrating. Share with the entire staff Native content that you've infused. Oh my gosh, you should have seen, it's just been incredible for the staff morale and the staff confidence to be able to see their colleagues openly sharing in an email. Here's what I did with Native students today. Here's content that I infused. High school history teacher, I did a big comparison of the Holocaust and the boarding school era and the impacts and all of these things, like just totally, right? You know, we're going to make mistakes, but at the same time, right? Those are the objective pieces of the content. The subjective stuff are how the students are going to interact with it. Let that be the subjective stuff. So that's what's really gotten them comfortable, is you don't have to be the expert. Provide the objectivity of the content and let the students intermingle with that. Black, white, Asian, you name it, whatever culture, they're going to have some thoughts on it. And so when we look at all of this, this is really just, again, you know, Waters Meet staff, they know more about Native Americans than probably ever in their entire life, and they've shared that. No question about it. And we're right in the beginning. And so moving forward, we know, right? Every school district, you're going to have turnover. 10% usually is about a bare minimum. So we've got plans for that. We're going to make sure that those new folks that are coming in, we're going to not saturate them so they're scared. We're going to, right, nice and easy, bring them along. They'll have some Ricky time, some Lisa time, some George time to make them feel like they belong. And here's what we do at Waters Meet. So in this photo here, I think, Lisa, you can kind of take it, but we had teachers make dream catchers, right? Because everybody kind of knows what the story of that dream catcher, but it's really about problem solving. And it's really about kind of overcoming challenges, right? That those things, those challenges that end up manifesting in our dream. And so every teacher, right, had an opportunity, as we talked about at this juncture of the year. I think it was like in March, right? March Madness, we all have stuff going on. Let's make a good dream catcher. This is not a nightmare right now, folks. And this is what our people did to overcome a lot of things. We gifted, but a lot of times we also did them in crafts, right? You know, so here's just a photo. There's Lisa and a teacher struggling with a dream catcher. They're not easy to make. So Lisa, what do you think?
I struggled. I didn't complete the task. So yeah, I still didn't make a dream catcher, Ricky. I'm still working on it. So, but that speaks to the stereotype though, that not all Native people know how to make a dream catcher. Let's just, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm still working on it. Still working on it.
Yeah, and that's what we mean, folks. You see community members, right? You know, right there, tribal members. We, at many of our trainings, parents, yes, a couple members from the parent committee coming and sharing openly with the teachers some of their experiences. So we're not afraid to have, right? There, it's not this fear that we're going to make mistakes. We are going to make them, right? But it's really this synergy of that relationship between the school and the tribe that's just moved this thing forward in such a a powerful way, but I think a united way as well. There's no questions. We're going to have disagreements on all levels at times, but I think that spirit of invitation. By the way, next year we're looking at, and we have it in our plan and in our improvement plan, to now infuse restorative circles as part of our ways. It's a natural progression, you know, and we've been doing it already. So go ahead and go to the next slide if you would. Yeah. Go ahead there, Lisa. This is there.
Right. So Native American Heritage Month, it's right, like it says, it's more than just 1 month of the year, but I did want to highlight some of the things though, is what we had movie night for 2 different grade categories, right? K-5 and 7-12. That went over really well. Families were here from the whole community. We were running around, they were eating popcorn. Probably not really watching the movie, but you know, social time. So it was good. And then we had Ojibwe Moen Bingo. Wow. We had elders here. We had the whole community here. I mean, it was a lot of fun, a lot of prizes to be won. It was great. It was great. And the kids are learning the language. They're learning, you know, so it's a win-win. What else do we have? Storytelling we had in the library. Oh, that was fun. That was great. Oh, right. Oh, right. So George is mentioning the potato dance. There's images of the potato dance in some following slides. Chili and fry bread. So the Harvest Festival, I think we had moccasin games. I think there's images of that if you want to move to the next slide. Right, so here's the wigwam, right? And we have Roger Lebin, he's our Lac Vieux Desert water resources person. I hope I said that right. And then, so he came and built a replica of wigwam. It's still in the lobby. And to go with that, also we have a resource guide that is Michigan Department of Education approved, Mondonganon, the social studies. And so within it, there's multiple curriculums. So what I happen to do is one of the professional development days, what I mentioned is within this book, there's something called wigwametry, right? Who would have thought? So it's pretty cool. But it's actually a curriculum. So math and science all combined to build a wigwam. So it's pretty cool. You can move to the next slide. I get pretty excited about that. And then here, oh wow. Okay, so we have also, we have our Lac Vieux Desert Education Committee, works in conjunction with the school here. We have the college and opportunity fairs here. So far we've had 3 of them. We do 2. The plan is 2 a year, one in the fall, one in the spring. I have a Harvard connection now because, hey man, you know, anything's attainable, you know. So we have the last college fair that we had 22 organizations come here to the school and meet with 7th through 12th graders. And so networking, collaborating. And other districts, we had other district students come here to the school, get bused into the school to the college fair. We had every tribal department on site to be able to network with the students if they were interested. We had them interact and engage with every person that attended. So, and then a teacher gave extra credit for the participants if they went around to each table, engaged, asked questions, interacted, not just for attending, but for the additional interactions. So that's going over really well. The college fairs that we have here at the Watersmeet School. So that's wonderful. Next slide, please. And this is some more images of the Ojibwe Moen Bingo night. You can see pictures of tribal elders in the community and their grandchildren, and you see general council here. It's just a big community event and a lot of fun, laughing, eating. And then they're learning the language, so it's a good thing. Next slide. And some more pictures of community in here. You have vice chairman in here, his wife Tracy, their daughter Allie. Anishinaabe Moen Bingo. It's community. It's fun. It's great. Learning the language again. And these are after hours, right? They're after school. We're bringing people to the school for these events. So it's a beautiful collaboration. Next slide, please. This here, I know it looks like just a bunch of boxes in the wigwam, but you see there's numbers around the wigwam. They were doing a cakewalk to a hand drum. Frank Young was doing the hand drum, and they were doing a cakewalk. So they'd stop on a certain number and they'd win a cake, right? So that's what they're doing around that wigwam, the students with that elder there. We talk about things being connections and spirits being awakened here. I definitely would agree, because we have the community that comes into the school. Next slide, please. Moccasin game teachings. This is an old game. This is this is a good one. This actually my son, TC, he works with the Boys and Girls Club and the Early Head Start, and he was showing them how to play this moccasin game. Next slide, please, Nicholas. Movie night, you see Chris Frank Young, he was doing the hand drum. You have a parent, Alan Shively, you have teacher, Miss Grit, she's the art teacher. You have them all around the arts and crafts tables, you know, at the family night. You can see it. It's all the interactions and the beautiful art. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the potato dance. You see two brothers here, Blake and Brock Shively. There's the potato. I think the potato fell right here. And then you have some elders in the community, Lawrence Williams, Jackie Book. I think she's I don't know if she's Williams. She's Williams now. Doing the potato dance. This was hilarious. This was great. And then over here, we had students in the art class. We went in and they made birch bark ornaments. So Spider-Man, yeah, Dakota, I think made that. Oh, me glitch. Next one. Another example of how school is used as a community hub. We had the Lac-Des Desert Agricultural Department at the college fair. It was the biggest table. It was the most interaction. They're wanting to learn how to grow food. They're wanting to know how to live sustainable off the land. These are these questions. You should hear the questions these kids ask. They're amazing. Next slide, please. English.
Thank you. Just hopefully you got kind of a flavor there of the type of thing and those relationships and how that becomes so important, in building those relationships. And that's really where for tribal consultation, for us, that we wanted to focus on and bring that a little bit more center rather than focusing on the requirements of the law or legislation, is that there's a deeper reason why we do these things, and more of an imperative than just some legal mandate that we need to document in some way, and really beginning with that relationship. So turn it over now to Melissa to talk a little bit more about that.
Miigwech Nate. So you heard the beautiful story of the tribal nation or Lac Vieux Desert, and the local education agency being the Waters Meet School District, how they started with an invitation, and really that initiation of relationship is crucial to any work that is done, because historically tribes and the LEAs, local education agencies, and even the state education agencies, it's a tragic history. And so being able to move on from that in our own ways, the things that we're ready for, is definitely crucial to the work. So now we're going to move into how the state education agency, in this case, the Michigan Department of Education, approaches the work, and where does the SEA fit with tribal nations and our local education agencies for on behalf or for to serve our Indigenous learners. As Nate mentioned, honoring relationships is really important, and the Michigan Department of Education, our Indigenous Education Initiative team, is definitely very mindful that there are some districts who are just coming out of this and have a beautiful story to tell, and some are kind of stuck in those historical legacy, very complex relationships, and aren't to this point yet. And some are doing very, very important work, and really have learned to embrace and work together. So everyone's in a different place. So as an initiative, when we approach the work, we are certain to honor relationships, and to us that requires us to understand and really believe that relationship is the foundation from which we live and learn, and that our team acknowledges and respects the relationships of others, and that we work to continue nurturing our current relationships, as well as keeping ourselves open to engaging in new relationships. You can see on the slide here in our Anishinaabemowin language, we have often operated in silos, very, very separated. And so that word Ninwe in our language means we. So today I work for the state education agency, the Indigenous Education Initiative. And historically that SEA has, okay, we are doing things, but we're not including you, meeting tribal nations and local education agencies in some cases. And oftentimes quinoa, which is you all, were operating and doing things and making decisions. So it was you all, but it wasn't us, and vice versa. And so it's a two-way street. It's give and take, it's compromise, it's all those things that you think about when you're developing and nurturing the relationships in your lives with your family members, with your coworkers. And so really, there was absence of relationship in some of these cases, as I mentioned before. And so today we're actively and intentionally interrupting those harmful legacies between tribal nations and the local education agencies and the state education agencies. And we're not operating anymore from a Ninwe or a quinoa perspective, but more from a Kinwe perspective, which is you and me, us together. And so we really use that framework or that approach ground in Indigenous knowledge systems when we're approaching this work. And it's privileged. It should be, because Indigenous people are the experts of their ways of being, knowing, learning, and so on. Next slide, please. All right, so how did the Michigan Department of Education, how did they begin? Okay, we're looking to establish this relationship. One of the most crucial things, one of the most crucial partners that we have are the Confederation of Michigan Tribal Education Departments, which consists of representation from all 12 tribal education departments of the 12 federally recognized tribes in what we now know as Michigan. And so if you look down below, those are the tribal symbols, the logos of each of those tribes. And so collectively, they each have their own education system. They all look different. They're not all the same. And so they come together and their collective voices, what we know as CMTED. And so their shared purpose when they come together, because I said they're very different, right? They all have different initiatives going on. But when they come together, their shared purpose is to provide guidance and support in an advisory capacity for the development of educational programs that serve to improve the wellness of tribal citizens. They assist in establishing a network of support, guidance, and collaboration to advocate for the educational and cultural needs of their people, of Anishinaabe people. And so CMTED is a very, they're the key to the work that we do. Next slide. And so talking about the work that I do today with the Michigan Department of Education's Indigenous Education Initiative. So our initiative is created, supported through the Michigan Department of Education. And what we are tasked with is working with tribal nations throughout the state to develop and maintain authentic and meaningful consultative relationships. And each of those relationships looks different because not all tribal nations are the same. And the focus is to build a cohesive and sustainable approach for collaboration between the tribes, the state, and the local entities to address educational issues and also identify shared priorities and really take that approach of togetherness on behalf of Indigenous learners and communities in Michigan. And so taking into consideration our body of work with CMTED, the Michigan Department of Education's Indigenous Education Initiative, we dedicate our work to ensuring the advancement, like I mentioned, and that we have identified commitments that are equally important and consist of virtues that keep us grounded in the work and to do things in a good way, in the right way. And so those commitments are to honor relationships, as I mentioned. We're here to practice Indigenous servant leadership, to indigenize the narrative. We're disruptors of the status quo. We're here to evolutionize kinship, to center on the sacred and transform systems. And so when CMTED, as you can see in the slide here, and the MDE IEI, when we work together, we do it consistently and we do it often to maintain that authentic relationship. We also work together in a government to government relationship. We see each other, we interact with each other, and we truly respect each other as collaborative governance partners and more. We know each other's clans, we've met each other's families, we visited our, each other's communities, and different events. And so it's not just a checklist. That is not consultation. That's not the approach that we take at all. We gather quarterly in person. We gather virtually monthly, weekly. We have opportunities to share in learning. And then there's even daily communication, as Lisa knows, depending on the topic or the issue that is going on. And so the communication is constant. Next slide, Nate. So in 2019, Governor Gretchen Whitmer issued Executive Directive 2019-17, requiring all state departments to engage in meaningful consultation with tribal officials. So together, CMTED and the initiative, the Indigenous Education Initiative, co-constructed and co-wrote the Michigan Department of Education's tribal consultation policy. We didn't say, here, we're going to write this. Everybody take a look at it, provide your feedback. It wasn't like that at all. It was meeting, reading, looking at other policies. How do we articulate and embody how we actually live and learn in relationship? And so Oftentimes you'll see tribal consultation policies that are a checklist. This one is unlike any of those. And so if you love policy, which a lot of people don't, but if you do, you're going to love this one because it is unlike those typical consultation policy checklists. And so I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Nate.
All right, so Melissa kind of shared some of the work that was done at the state level, working directly with tribes to build that relationship at that level. And that was really important to have that foundation in place before we move forward more at the local district level. But we recognized very quickly that what was good at that state and tribal level was also good to be happening down at the local district level. And so one of the things that we started trying to do is organize together a community of practice. So there are, I forget the exact number now, over 800 districts within the state of Michigan. And not all of those districts have specific like Indian education programs, although the majority of the districts do serve Indigenous students. But we wanted to begin building a community of practice where one district can begin talking to another about what they're doing, how they're serving those students. And so we can begin sharing those ideas and building this idea of community statewide rather than districts operating independently. So that was kind of one of the first efforts that we began making so that districts can begin learning from each other and learning in relationship and having the tribes and the representatives from the tribal education departments being invited into those spaces to have some of these conversations. So the picture that you see here was actually kind of a tour that we did this fall. Went to one of the school districts. They had several school districts nearby coming to visit as well and sort of explore what their program was, what they were doing within their district. So right now, most of these meetings have been virtual. We're hoping to get some of them more in person as we move forward and just continuing to develop those relationships over time. And really the drive of that is we understand that people in those trusting relationships do seek input from one another and then actually use it. So as a state agency, we can come in and craft all kinds of legislation, rules, things like that. But that's not what's really going to move the needle. What's going to move the needle is seeing examples like Waters Meets example, being able to share that and other people being able to see that, experience that, live that in those trusting relationships, and then begin to learn from that and take pieces of it that work in their own community and their own school district and begin to build on that and grow that. And so that's really what we're trying to promote through that community of practice. The other thing that we needed to do at the state kind of goes back to that visibility piece again. So I know Waters Meet shared, how needed to get that visibility within that individual school system. Well, our state had some of the same flaws within the state system. There wasn't any visibility within the state system for Indigenous learners. And so one of the things that we developed then was developing an actual website landing page that people could go to begin getting some information, offer a place for us to begin posting information, sharing information out there to increase that visibility, which again helps support that ongoing building of community across the state. So that's become a resource where people can find additional information about Indigenous communities, about school districts, about working with tribes, about grant opportunities, all these different things that can kind of flow through there that people can work on and school districts who are working on building those relationships can utilize. One of the resources that's available on that website that we ended up developing as school districts began talking about how do we interact with tribes, what are some of the things that we need to talk about. What we realize is that there's a lot that's going on. And so we developed this consultation timeline, which kind of outlines what's going on in the grant year for many of these different grants where consultation might be required around. So it's sort of opening up the transparency on what's happening within the district about what's going on. But then for each month or each period of time there, talking about some of the documents that a school district might be able to share with the tribes and bring to the consultation conversation. And then also some questions that might be useful to discuss at those different times during the school year. So you can see that the lead into this is just sort of a general getting to know you, that there's some additional basic information, baseline information that will be important to share as the tribes and districts start building that relationship. But then as they go forward each month, there's certain activities that happen each month within the school calendar. And so the conversation is going to change. It's not a one-shot deal. It's not like we did our consultation on this date, check that off, but it's an ongoing conversation that occurs throughout the year, talking about what's going on with the different programs that are happening at the school. Along with that, we developed the affirmation of consultation form that school districts use. So we actually have, even though there's several hundred districts within the state, there's a relatively small number of districts that are actually required under section 8538 of SEA to do consultation as an affected LEA. And they're required to then document that consultation and send that documentation into the state. So we did develop that form that those districts can utilize that captures some of that information about what that is. And really that form is just about getting a point in time reference so that we at the state get an idea of what those relationships look like. It's not something where huge penalties come down if it's not filled out exactly right. It's something just to give us an idea about what's going on between the schools and the tribes in terms of those relationships. And so it offers an opportunity to capture that information and then submit that information to the state. So that occurs, that needs to be submitted every year by those affected LEA districts that are there. We encourage districts, even when they're not affected LEAs, to use something similar to that to document that. We have several districts that sort of float right on the line between being affected and not affected. And so having that ongoing relationship, it's not a relationship that you do just because you meet the certain classification, it's something that's ongoing. And part of that is reflected as well within the legislation beyond affected LEAs. All Title I school-wide schools are required to have a school-wide program description or program plan, and are also required to consult with the tribes that are in their area as they develop that plan. So that's not something that has to be documented in the same way about what's going on with all that consultation sent to the state. But you do see there's a screen clip here, and I'll share the link to that overall document as well. That has this checklist here of who did you consult with, who was engaged in the consultation to develop this plan. And you can see tribes and tribal organizations are on that list of somebody to consult to. So it starts bringing that visibility forward for the tribes, for the indigenous students within the state, and starts prompting those discussions about what that looks like. So the other big thing that we developed, and this is relatively new, you can see the date on here. This is a tribal consultation guidebook, and we don't yet have this guidebook online. It is something that we're kind of on the first version of it, but already have plans in the works to make some changes to it. We were just able to share this guidebook with the Confederation of Michigan Tribal Education Departments at the recently quarterly convening. We actually co-developed it with them, but kind of the final print version of it, we were able to share with them at that meeting. And just recently, we were able to share with all of the tribal leadership through the United Tribes of Michigan meeting as well. So this is a guidebook that we kind of put out there. One of the things with this guidebook, again, it's not a checklist. It really gets to the heart of what we would look for in terms of what we want consultation to look like. It doesn't give sort of a step-by-step, but just talks about what it should look like. So I can actually share, hopefully you can see that on there. it just kind of answers some key questions about what consultation should look like for the LEAs as they work with tribes. And starting off with that key question of why would we consult with tribes? And we tried to make it so it wasn't really legislative based, but it was relationship based in that. And then what does it mean to actually consult with tribes? And what should that focus of consultation be? And then who is it that we actually need to consult with? So it kind of goes through some of those different questions and answers them. And if you're interested in seeing a copy of that, you're more than welcome to email one of us or get in touch with one of us, and we can get you a copy of that guidebook as well. I'll drop my email here in the chat if you want to see a copy of that guidebook. So I did want to leave a little bit of time for questions. I kind of went through that part pretty quickly. We did say kind of at the beginning that this is a work in progress in Michigan. So the guidebook is relatively new. The website is relatively new as well. We continue to take feedback from the tribes as we work in that relationship and look at ways to improve the resources and supports that we're providing to districts, and look for ways to continue to build those relationships and do so in a good way. Without making it just sort of a check off for schools, but something that actually comes back around and really produces a significant benefit for the learners, for the students that are really at the heart of all of this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Right now, I checked the chat and the Q&A and I don't see any questions, but if someone wants to go ahead and put their question in chat, we can make sure we address it, or maybe even a comment, maybe sharing something that your state is doing or your tribe is engaged in that you'd like to share. Go ahead. And we'll just wait a little bit to see if anybody has anything they want to share or ask a question. We're getting
Hello,
Go ahead, go ahead.
my name is James Williams. I'm the tribal chairman here for Lac Desert, and I've been sitting here listening to all the good things that not only our staff here at the Watersmeet School is doing, but our staff with the tribe as well. And we've come a long ways. And I'm a Nimrod here. I'm born and raised here and graduated from the school, and I've seen progress throughout the years, and up to a few years ago that it's even progressing more. So I want to say thank you to the Michigan Education Department for really, focusing on tribal needs, our children's education. I think that should be a priority. I know it is for our tribe, and also should be the #1 priority for Michigan. And so I appreciate everything and all the hard work that you guys have done with this. And, I look forward to more progress as we move on. I really appreciate and thank the teachers for buying into this kind of model that we're setting for Indian country and for the districts throughout Michigan. And I'm hoping that we can make a difference as we move forward and start working on the outside communities other than the school as well, because I think we have to have them buy in. I heard, I've seen a couple of books that our second and third graders have put together, and I think those are our target groups that we need to really look at to start educating and really get on the same page as far as we're all one person, and that's the way we need to start looking at that. And I can't thank the staff here enough for really taking the time to learn what they need to learn to make all our students feel comfortable in our district. So I just want to say miigwech for that. Oh.
Thank you. There is a comment in the chat from Jennifer that I guess we are a tribe in Washington State and a lot of things you shared are very similar. Awesome. And then people are saying thank you for this presentation. Okay, if there's not anything else, I just sort of want to go, can you go to the next slide, Nate? And so what's coming up next? So next, we're a little early. We're gonna end maybe 4 minutes early, but the next session is roundtables, and we have a whole bunch of different really exciting roundtables. This is really just a time for you to talk and meet with other people and discuss different topics. I know there's one on again, tribal consultation, because that has been such a reoccurring and important need definitely within the larger community, but also within OIE grantees. There are also going to be roundtables on data, data sovereignty, data collection, evaluation. The way you can find, I'm going to share my screen here. Nate, do you mind if I stop your sharing ability? Is that okay? All right.
Good.
So what you would do is you go here. And what you want to do is you want to go into the lounge. And then you can click on this roundtable networking, this blue button here. And then you can see all of the ones in yellow right now. Oh, I'm sorry, where the little book or the image is in the circle is green. Those are all roundtables that will be occurring in about 5-7 minutes. So you can go ahead and pick which one you want, and you can click here, take a seat, and then you'll be entering the roundtable. Okay. Anyone have any more questions or comments? Awesome. I'd like to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing what you do in Michigan and within your tribes and within your system of education. Thank you so much. And we do want to extend a mahalo. Thank you for your sharing. And you free to go now. Thank you so much. Aloha.